Now, what I disagree with is the demonization of this immigration process.
So just to kind of like, sort of like look a bit into the education side of things. So it's very interesting because there's an influx of Nigerians traveling into the UK. This has been the case over the last couple of years. I mean, it's always been the case, but even more so now in the last sort of 4 or 5 years.
Absolutely.
And what I've noticed is that these Nigerians that are coming to the UK are moving to the Northeast. Some of them. For the reason, and this is just what I've noticed, is that for the reason that sometimes it's quite expensive to live down south. So it feels like a lot of them are coming to Sunderland, Middlesbrough, some are coming to Newcastle, but even Newcastle in itself is a bit more expensive. But you're the expert here. So I wanted to ask you how that industry with, Nigerians coming over, and because it's a positive thing that you're doing for a person to finally be able to afford it to leave Nigeria, which it's bittersweet. You live in your country, your place of, your home. It's sad really to think that you have to leave your country to go somewhere else for a better life. So that in itself is sad. But I guess it's sweet because then I guess you have the opportunities to advance your studies and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Right. The student migration conversation is a deep one. Of course, I'm sure you know that earlier in the week, there has been a new government legislation, which we're going to talk about.
Yes.
And of course, look at the rationales around those kind of publication from the government.
Yes.
It will be interesting to say it or two about that. But so, I came here as a student myself.
Yes.
Right. And
what year was this?
That will be 2013. Yeah.
So about 10 years ago.
Yeah. So, and I came here as a student, young, bright, and I loved the fact that I worked a bit after university, and I loved the fact that I was going to study. And it was an exciting and transformational experience because I began to leverage from the interconnectivity of people from different parts of the world, which I must say greatly the UK provides the platform for internationalization within the educational sector. The educational sector here is robust, and the job and the crafting and the structure of delivering a global education to a global audience is way standardized. It's a given. Most UK universities pride themselves in delivering best quality graduates. In my company, we have the blessings of being in the industry for the past 6 years, and we have about 15 partner universities in the UK alone. And what that means is that we are able to represent them in Africa and be a legal sort of immigration consultant towards guiding genuine students who are looking to travel for the purpose of education into the country. And I might not completely agree with you in the proposition that the Northeast is the greatest beneficiary of those numbers. Okay. As a matter of fact, the numbers have gone way high.
Okay.
And it is all as a result of the advent of the 2-year post-study work visa.
Okay.
Because before now, the UK had a model where if you finish your program, you have 3 months to go back home. And what it denied the economy was it denied them the brightest brain and the brightest minds. Unlike if you were a best graduate in America or in Canada, you're not going nowhere. The Etgsls, the pharmaceuticals, the Lillys, the GEs, the big companies are feasting on this brightest and the best. So I found, and of course, during my days in the university, I was part of the National University and delegate for my university. And one of the agendas we pursued vigorously was for the government to look into post-study work visa, which allows students who have gone through the society and through the university to really participate in nation building and contributing their quotas. And gratefully, the government of Boris Johnson approved that. And in approving that, opened up a robust opportunity for highly talented individuals to come in to universities, study, and therefore, upon graduation, participate in nation building. A nation building that I must argue to say the UK is desperately in need of. Upon the exit from the Brexit, from the European Union, the country has found itself, agreed or not, in a catastrophic reality where there had been little preparation for the aftermath of what became the reality. In some times, there were cancellation of flights because low-skilled workers who were in charge of baggage and luggages at the Heathrow Airport were on shortage. People were doing more hours than were legally allowed so as to keep international flights working. By doing that, by not being able to staff or present the required skill mix that was necessary for the operation of Heathrow International Airport, the UK was losing millions of pounds every day. Because not only were they losing millions of pounds for cancellation, but for paying damages, for paying for people who sued them or who had insurances covered for their flights they could not meet up to or they could not deliver. And underneath all of that is shortage of personnel who had left the UK because the people who were in that job role were predominantly Eastern Europeans and love Europeans. So after the Brexit happened, they left. But the country was not prepared. Now ask me, who filled those gaps? International students filled those gaps readily and easily and kept the country on the wheel. Now, what I disagree with is the demonization of this immigration process. A lot of persons, especially in the big media, have taken their time to demonize the essence of student migration to the UK. But I have been in the UK 10, 11 years, and I tell you for free, across all the hospitals, across all the care homes, across all the factories, across all the major establishments, even during the COVID-19 pandemic time, folks who were at the forefront of leading and working, and this is not to diminish the contribution of UK nationals, I must say, but there were more people needed on the fronts. And international students and members of the international community who are happy residents in the UK rose to the moment and contributed, not even thinking of their nationality in those instances. So we have some sort of balance, as I would imagine. The government is beginning to calibrate itself and then suddenly remembers that the migration net figure is a problem. And hence, we have earlier in the week, the government releasing a policy that arguably contravenes another greater principle of life, another greater principle of law, which is the principle of right to family life. Even in times of war, no government seeks to separate families from themselves. Even in times of war. We're not at war, but the UK present immigration policy seeks to separate families from their loved ones because they choose to pursue an education in the UK. An education that is not free. An education that they have to pay for, which is not cheap. So we have so much narrations about how the UK is saturated and how these students have come up and how there's been a one-to-one visa of dependence against principal applicants in the last how many years. And I dare ask, are they giving visas for free? No. These people pay visa fees, and they are not cheap. The least visa fees are at minimum £500. From the statistics coming from the Home Office, 1.1 million people were given visas in last year alone. If you put the mathematics together, 1.1 million times £500 is what goes into the coffers of the UK government on migration alone. And that is just discussing the visa fee. There's what they call IHS fee, Immigration Health Surcharge. People who come here to study for 2 years have to pay IHS fee for 2 years. IHS fee is thereabouts is in the region of £650 depending, either £850 or £750, and they pay for 2 years. So that's £1,500 and above for 2 years. So it means that if I'm bringing an example, if I'm bringing 3 dependents with me, these 3 dependents are paying £4,500 for 2-year program in the UK, alongside their visa fees of about £500. So my dependents are paying £4,500. I'm paying under £1,500. That's £6,000 on IHS fee alone, and we are paying another £2,000 or £2,500 on visa fee alone. That's how much for one family. That's a family of one student and 4 dependents. That's putting in nearly £8,500 into the UK government account. This is government money, government revenue, straight to the government. Question is, what is the government doing with those monies? Because if the government were to be serious and honest, they'll build more schools. They'll invest more in housing. They'll open up more lands and go into the communities, the counties, the regions, and expand more. So by doing those things, creating more opportunities, you have more startups. There are more businesses in America than human beings. Are you aware? There are more companies in America than human beings.
Yep.
And these companies, more than half of them are not opened by Americans. But there's an enabling environment through which these companies thrive and become employers of labor. But rather than think as to how to utilize this moment to broaden the job space, the housing space, the environment, to create startup businesses, leveraging on the potential and the asset-driven intelligence of people who do so well in their home countries and by the education they have received or they are receiving in the UK, are even becoming better persons. To build on this economy, this beautiful, great economy, the government is taking a swipe to stopping people who are looking to advance and grow in life and progress in life, to prevent them from coming with their loved ones. I think it's a bit of a shame. And I think the argument has not been balanced. I think there has been one narrative part of the whole argument, and the media is caught it and is flogging it. But if the government is serious on this, then we want to be seeing how much the government has made side by side with the number of students that have entered this country. And of course, not only at the point of entry, but even as little as the taxes that are made from the students and the national insurance that those students have had to pay to the government. And then you begin to reflect on whether realistically they are of disadvantage to this economy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, we can go on and on and down, but I don't want to. I don't want to lose you completely.
No, I've been following you quite very well, actually, and I'm very thankful that you've sort of like explained that in such a manner that I could understand and follow. It's clearly an area and a topic that you're very passionate about. So we've established that the students are moving to the UK, and what I'm hearing is that there's now a new legislation that might impact that being a possibility in the sense that with the fees that people are going to have to pay, this is going to attenuate the amount of people that can move to the UK to study? Is that what?
No. The legislation is that the government has just announced that from January 2024, international students will no longer be able to travel to the UK for their studies with their families.
Okay.
Which is separating individuals from their families.
Okay.
Because they choose to go to the UK to study. And I think that is too much of a blow.
Okay, so is there any way around it, or is that just the case? So that's the law. So from 2024, if, let's say, for instance, a husband wants to travel to the UK to do his masters.
Yeah, he can't travel with the wife.
So, and it used to be the case that he used to be able to travel with the wife and the kids.
Yes.
So from 2024, this is going to be the new rule. You can't travel with your wife.
You can't travel with your wife.
So your wife stays.
Yes.
Now, what happens at the end of the master's program? They have about 3 months till before they have to go back home?
No. So they at the moment, the government has still not touched the 2-year post-study work visa, which allows you 2 years after graduation to work in the UK.
Yeah.
Which is just a policy that has been in existence for the past 3.5 years. So when Boris Johnson came in, he was part of his innovative policies he brought on with him. So that remains. That is still on the table for international students. But of what use is that when there's a continued separation of individuals from their family?
Yeah.
Which impacts on well-being.
Yeah.
Which impacts on the core essence of family value.
Yeah.
And family unison and family, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not been a well scrutinized policy.
And is this policy across the board to every country?
International students, that's the bracket word.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're from the US or if you're from Australia.
Well, now that's something to look into again. But it just says international students. But before, but when you look at it side by side, not so much of Americans or Australians would come to this country with families
to study. Yeah.
Or, so to say, large families, large family size to study. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this really doesn't bother more of the Australian and Americans who often come here and are not mature students, so they don't have families already. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So this is predominantly a concern for emerging economies, the Indians, the Pakistans, the Nigerians, the African nations, so to say, quote unquote. So which arguably, like I've actually tried to explain before, are also major part of the building blocks through which this country have had to navigate themselves in times of national need and crisis, and in times of national employment crisis. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have been suitable to play those roles to help navigate the ship of state during crisis. And I do see the government be in a position where they can self-sufficiently say they've gotten a control on things. And then I see it as a purging mechanism, purging themselves of excess weight. I mean, one might argue that, of course, it is well within the right of any government to be a bit selfish. Does that make sense? To think of its people first. But I think they have not exhausted the benefits that came with the migration, and what there's no proper understanding of the monumental financial benefits of this process and the application of those finances to the life of the UK citizens and the country itself. I believe that if they had exhausted that course of action and resolved to this, then you would have seen a truly honest and systematic way of addressing
This has been amazing. For everyone who's watched and listened, thanks for your eyes and your ears, and we'll catch you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.